When a man tells you that you'll never win, he's really telling you he's terrified you might. For 20 years, I built systems that kept a national logistics company running. I wasn't flashy about it. I didn't brag. I just showed up, solved problems, and went home. That quiet competence was supposed to be enough. It wasn't. When Marcus Chen became CEO, he was 38, Harvard educated, and convinced that anyone over 40 was dead weight holding back innovation. Within 6 months, he orchestrated my demotion from operations director to senior consultant, a title that sounded important but came with no team, no authority, and a 40% pay cut. He told the board I was resistant to change. He told me in his glass corner office that I should accept reality and make room for fresh talent. Then he smiled and said, "You'll never win against me, Rebecca. I own this building now." I walked out of that office with my box of personal items, my company badge deactivated, my 2 decades of expertise dismissed as irrelevant. I should have been broken. I should have disappeared quietly. But what Marcus didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I had built something nobody else understood. And 3 months later, when the emergency call came at AM, the entire company learned exactly what Marcus had thrown away. Let me take you back to the day everything changed. It was a Thursday morning in March. I remember because I'd brought coffee for the team, something I did every Thursday for 12 years. The office smelled like vanilla creamer and fresh bagels. People were laughing about something one of the junior analysts had posted in Slack. It felt normal, safe. Then Marcus's assistant appeared at my desk. "Rebecca, he needs to see you upstairs." I thought it was about the quarterly review. Maybe the integration project with the new warehouse management system. I grabbed my tablet, smoothed my blazer, and took the elevator to the executive floor. Marcus was sitting behind his desk, hands folded, expression neutral. 2 HR representatives sat in chairs against the wall. That's when I knew. "Rebecca, thank you for coming," he said, like I'd had a choice. "We've been evaluating operational efficiency across all departments." I stayed standing. "Okay. Your role as operations director has become redundant." He slid a folder across the desk. "We're restructuring. You'll transition to senior consultant, effective immediately." The words didn't land right away. I heard them, but they felt like they belonged to someone else's conversation. "Redundant," I repeated. "Your experience is valuable," he said smoothly, "but we need leadership that understands modern systems architecture, digital transformation, agile methodologies." I opened the folder. The new job description was 2 paragraphs long. No direct reports, no budget authority, 40% pay cut. "I built the system you're running on," I said quietly. Marcus leaned back. "And we appreciate that foundation. But foundations are just starting points. We're building something new now." One of the HR reps cleared her throat. "You have 2 weeks to transition your responsibilities." I looked at Marcus. Really looked at him. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't apologetic. He was comfortable, confident. This wasn't a difficult decision for him. It was already done. "Who's replacing me?" I asked. "Tyler Reed, MIT grad, formerly with Amazon. He's brilliant." "He's 28, Marcus smiled. "Exactly." I set the folder down. "Can I have a moment to process this?" "Of course. Take the rest of the day." I walked out of that office with my spine straight and my face neutral. I made it to the elevator. I made it to my desk. I started packing my personal items into a cardboard box someone had left by the recycling bin. A mug that said "World's Okayest Boss." A framed photo of my niece. The succulent that had survived 4 office moves. Colleagues walked past. Some made eye contact and looked away quickly. Others suddenly became very interested in their phones. Sarah from accounting stopped. "Rebecca, what's happening?" "Restructuring," I said. My voice sounded normal. "Steady. It's fine." It wasn't fine. I carried my box through the maze of cubicles, past a break room where I'd celebrated promotions and birthdays, past a server room where I'd spent countless late nights debugging code nobody else wanted to touch, past a conference room where I'd trained every person who'd ever worked in operations. My badge didn't work at the exit. The security guard had to manually override it. "Sorry, Miss Torres," he said. "System must have updated already." I smiled. "It's okay, David. Take care." I drove home in silence. I didn't cry. I was too numb. The apartment felt too quiet. I set the box on the kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and started looking at job postings. Operations director, 20 years experience, 45 years old. Every listing said they wanted dynamic candidates, innovative thinkers, digital natives. They all had age limits without saying it directly. 5-10 years experience preferred. I closed the laptop. I didn't know yet that Marcus had made the biggest mistake of his career, because what he took from me wasn't what kept that company alive. Let me tell you how I became invisible. 20 years ago, I started as a junior analyst at Meridian Logistics. Back then, it was a regional company with 12 warehouses and maybe 200 employees. The software situation was chaos. Order management ran on one system, inventory tracking on another. Shipping used a third-party platform that barely communicated with anything. Customer service kept everything in Excel spreadsheets. My first week, the operations director at the time, a man named Frank who drank too much coffee and wore the same tie every Friday, dropped a stack of printouts on my desk. "Figure out why we lost 3 pallets of electronics last week," he said. It took me for days. The shipping system had rounded a decimal differently than the inventory system. A tiny mathematical discrepancy that cascaded into missing products and angry clients. I fixed it with a Python script, 15 lines of code. Frank looked at it and shrugged. "Can you do that for everything?" So I did. Over the next 5 years, I built what I privately called the hub. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't pretty. It was a patchwork of scripts, macros, API calls, and custom integrations that connected 47 different legacy systems into something that actually worked. Nobody understood it. Nobody wanted to. They just knew that when they entered an order in one system, it magically appeared everywhere else. Inventory updated, shipping labels printed, customers got tracking numbers. It just worked. The company grew. 12 warehouses became 50, then 100. Regional became national. We hired hundreds of people. Revenues went from millions to hundreds of millions. And at the center of it all, invisible and humming quietly, was my system. The ID department tried to replace it 3 times. They'd bring in consultants with glossy presentations about enterprise solutions and cloud-based platforms. They'd spend weeks analyzing requirements. Then they'd try to migrate everything. And it would fail spectacularly. Orders would disappear. Inventory counts would go haywire. Shipping would grind to a halt. Clients would start calling, furious. And they'd come to me. "Rebecca, can you fix this?" I always could, because I'd built it. I understood every connection, every dependency, every workaround. I documented everything, wrote hundreds of pages of technical specifications, created flowcharts, recorded training videos, but the documentation was dense, technical. Nobody wanted to read it. They just wanted it to work. When Marcus arrived as CEO 2 years ago, he came from a tech startup. Everything was supposed to be agile and scalable and cloud native. He took one look at my systems and grimaced. "This is legacy architecture," he told the board. "It's holding us back." He hired a consulting firm. They charged $2 million to assess our infrastructure and recommend modernization strategies. Their report was 300 pages of buzzwords. Digital transformation roadmap, microservices architecture, containerized deployment pipelines. I read it and knew immediately it wouldn't work. Not because the technology was bad, but because they didn't understand what my system actually did. They saw old code and assumed it was simple. It wasn't. I tried to explain this in a meeting. Marcus cut me off. "Rebecca, I appreciate your concerns, but we need to move forward, not stay stuck in the past." "I'm not talking about the past," I said. "I'm talking about the 300 automatic processes that run every night. If you turn off my system, those stop. And if those stop, then we'll build new ones, better ones. It's not a switch, Marcus. You can't just." That's exactly the kind of defeatist thinking we're eliminating. 6 months later, I was demoted. Tyler Reed, the 28-year-old genius from MIT, took over my role. The consulting firm began implementing their new platform. And I let them. Because sometimes the only way to prove you're necessary is to let people try to live without you. The first month after my demotion was the hardest. Not because of the work, I barely had any, but because of the silence. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. out of habit. Then remember I didn't need to be in the office until 9. And even then, Nobody needed me there. I'd make coffee and sit at my kitchen table, scrolling through job listings that all wanted someone younger, cheaper, more adaptable. I applied to 43 positions in the first 2 weeks. I got 3 responses, all rejections. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Translation: you're too old. One Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting on my couch, laptop balanced on my knees, when my phone buzzed. A text from Jenny, one of the analysts I'd trained. Rebecca, something weird is happening with the inventory sync. Can I call you? I don't have access anymore, I typed back. I know, but you'd understand this. Nobody else does. She called anyway. Describe the problem. I walked her through the fix from memory. It took 10 minutes. You're a lifesaver, she said. I'm unemployed, I corrected. She laughed awkwardly and hung up. The calls kept coming. Not officially, just quietly. Sarah from accounting with a question about month-end reports. Tom from shipping asking why labels weren't printing correctly. Each time, I'd help, because what else was I going to do? But I couldn't fix anything myself. I had no access, no authority. I was a ghost, whispering solutions from the outside. Meanwhile, Marcus was making announcements, press releases about operational transformation, LinkedIn posts about embracing change, photos of him and Tyler at tech conferences, talking about building the future. I watched from my couch, eating takeout and wondering if this was just how careers ended. Quietly, without ceremony, like a system being deprecated. One Friday night, my friend Linda called. Rebecca, you need to get out of that apartment. I'm fine. You're not fine. You've been sitting in the dark for 3 weeks. Come have drinks with us. I almost said no, but the walls of my apartment were starting to feel like they were closing in. So I went. The bar was loud and crowded. Linda brought 2 other friends, women I barely knew, both around my age, both with their own stories of layoffs and restructuring and being told they were no longer the right fit. We drank wine. We complained. We laughed at things that weren't actually funny. And somewhere around the 3rd glass, Linda said, "Have you tried dating apps?" I nearly choked. What? I'm serious. When Mark and I split, I was a mess. Then I downloaded Hinge, went on some terrible dates, some okay dates. It wasn't about finding love. It was about remembering I still existed. I downloaded 3 apps that night. Hinge, Bumble, Occupid. I used a photo from my niece's wedding where I actually looked happy. I wrote a bio that felt ridiculous. Operations expert, coffee enthusiast, recently rediscovering life outside spreadsheets. The first match messaged me 2 hours later. Spreadsheets can be sexy if you're doing them right. I laughed out loud. First time in weeks. His name was David. He was a high school English teacher. Divorced. 2 kids. We met for coffee on a Sunday morning. It was aggressively normal. We talked about books and bad TV shows and the weird ways our lives had imploded. I'm not looking for anything serious, I said at the end. Good, he said. Me neither. We went out 3 more times. Movies, dinner, a comedy show where we both laughed too hard at mediocre jokes. It wasn't romance. It was decompression, permission to be a person instead of a career. I went on dates with other people too. An accountant who talked too much about his ex. A software developer who only wanted to discuss cryptocurrency. A divorced dad who spent the entire meal showing me photos of his kids. None of them mattered. What mattered was that I was doing something. Moving. Existing outside the catastrophic collapse of my professional identity. And slowly, something started shifting inside me. I stopped checking my old work email. I stopped scrolling LinkedIn for updates about Marcus and Tyler. I started running in the mornings, something I hadn't done since my 20s. I cleaned out my closet. I read books I'd been meaning to read for years. I started taking freelance consulting gigs, small projects. A local manufacturing company needed help with their inventory system. A nonprofit wanted to streamline their donor database. Nothing glamorous, but it was work I could do. Work I was good at. Work that reminded me I still had value. One evening, I was sitting at a coffee shop, working on a proposal for a potential client, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Rebecca Torres? Yes. This is Mitchell Grayson. I'm the CFO at Meridian. We've never actually met. I froze. Okay. I'm calling because I've been reviewing some operational reports. There are things happening that don't make sense. Costs going up, efficiency going down. And when I ask the operations team for explanations, they keep saying things like the old system used to handle that automatically. I didn't say anything. I pulled up your personnel file, he continued. Saw your transition to consultant. Saw the documentation you left. It's extensive. Yes. Can I ask you something off the record? Sure. Did Marcus make a mistake letting you go? I thought about that. About the system I'd built. About the warnings I'd given. About the quiet certainty I'd always had that this moment would come. Yes, I said. He did. Mitchell was quiet for a moment. If something breaks, if we need help, would you know? I said. Rebecca, I saved my documentation. I explained the risks. If Marcus wants to prove I'm obsolete, then I'm going to let him. I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was anxious, because I knew exactly what was coming. My system had 3 layers of redundancy. Backups for the backups. Fail-safes that would catch problems before they cascaded. I'd built it that way because I understood that in logistics, a single failure could cost millions. Tyler's new platform had none of that. It was sleek and modern and beautiful, but it was fragile. One critical component, no backup, no safety net. I knew the exact moment it would break. Not the date, I wasn't psychic, but I knew the conditions. High volume, multiple time zones, a spike in orders during a holiday weekend. And when it broke, nobody there would know how to fix it. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought about what I'd say when they called. If they called. The call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Saturday in June. My phone vibrated on the nightstand, the screen lighting up the dark room. Unknown number. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hello? Rebecca? The voice was panicked, unfamiliar. This is Ben Kowalski. I'm the VP of Operations now. We've never met, but I know who you are, I said, sitting up. What's wrong? Everything. Everything is wrong. The entire system is down. 3 time zones, 200 warehouses. Orders aren't processing. Inventory isn't syncing. We can't ship anything. We've been down for 2 hours and nobody can figure out why. I turned on the lamp. Where's Tyler? He's here. He's been trying to restart services, but nothing's working. Every time we bring something back up, something else crashes. Where's Marcus? A pause. He's here too. I stood up, walked to my kitchen, turned on the coffee maker. Put him on. Silence. Then muffled voices. Then Marcus's voice, quiet and strained in a way I'd never heard before. Rebecca. I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence stretch. Let him sit in it. We need help, he said. Help with what, Marcus? My outdated skills? My legacy thinking? Please. We're losing millions per hour. Clients are threatening to leave. His voice cracked slightly. I don't know what to do. I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one that said world's okayest boss. Tell me exactly what happened, I said. For the next 20 minutes, he described the disaster. Tyler had pushed an update to the new platform Friday evening. It was supposed to optimize database queries. Instead, it had corrupted the primary connection layer, the piece that talked to all the warehouse management systems. When they tried to roll back the update, they discovered there was no clean backup. The consulting firm had assured them the cloud infrastructure automatically backed up everything. It didn't. Not the configuration files. Not the integration mappings. Everything was gone. Can you fix it? Marcus asked. No, I said. Rebecca, I can't fix your new system, Marcus. I don't know your new system, but I can restore my old one. If you want that, yes. God, yes. Anything. Then here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to restore my full system access. Every credential, every permission, every database. You're not going to touch anything. You're not going to make suggestions. You're going to let me work. Done. And when this is over, we're going to have a very different conversation about my role. Whatever you want. I smiled. Not because I was happy, because I finally had leverage. Send me the access codes, I said. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. I hung up, drank my coffee, let them panic for exactly 10 minutes. Then I opened my laptop and went to work. The system wasn't completely gone. My backups were stored on secure servers that nobody knew existed. Private cloud storage I'd set up years ago as insurance. Every configuration file, every integration map, every line of custom code. But restoring it wasn't simple. Tyler's platform had overwritten critical components. I had to manually rebuild connection layers, reconfigure API endpoints, and verify each integration one at a time. I worked in silence, the only sound the clicking of my keyboard and the occasional ping of messages from the operations team asking for updates. By AM, I had inventory systems back online. By AM, order processing was restored. By AM, shipping labels were printing across all 200 warehouses. By 6:43 a.m., the entire system was operational. I sat back, finished my now cold coffee, and called Marcus. "It's done," I said. "Thank you." His voice was hollow, exhausted. "Rebecca." I hung up. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The email came 3 days later. Subject line: Emergency board meeting FYI. I wasn't invited. I was just being informed that a meeting would be held to discuss recent operational challenges and that my name would likely come up. I stared at the email for a long time. Then my phone rang. "Sarah from accounting." "Rebecca, you need to know what happened." "I'm listening." She took a breath. "The board demanded a full explanation of the system failure. Costs, timeline, everything. Marcus tried to blame it on your old infrastructure being poorly documented." I closed my eyes. Of course he did. But then Mitchell, the CFO, he pulled up the email chain. Every warning you sent, every risk assessment, every meeting where you told them exactly what would happen if they shut down your system. My chest tightened. "There was this one email," Sarah continued, "from 4 months ago. You wrote, 'If you implement this platform without adequate redundancy and rollback procedures, you will experience catastrophic failure during high-volume periods. I strongly recommend a phased approach with parallel systems.'" I remembered that email. I'd spent 2 hours writing it, making sure every word was precise, professional, undeniable. Marcus had replied. Sarah said quietly, "Your fear of change is noted and dismissed. We're moving forward." I laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. "What happened next?" I asked. One of the board members, Sharon Westbrook, she's been on the board for 20 years, she asked who fixed the system. Marcus tried to deflect, said it was a team effort. But Ben told the truth. He said, "Rebecca Torres fixed it, remotely, in 4 hours. She restored her original system because the new platform was unrecoverable." I sat down slowly. Then Sharon asked, "The woman you demoted because she was outdated?" Silence. Marcus didn't answer, Sarah said. He just sat there. And then Jeffrey Klein, he's the board chair, he said, "We need to discuss this in executive session." They asked Marcus to leave. "How do you know all this?" Ben told me. He felt sick about the whole thing. I stared out my window at the city below. Morning traffic, people going to work, normal life continuing. "What's going to happen?" I asked. "I don't know." "But Rebecca, they're talking about bringing you back." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I received a formal email from Jeffrey Klein. "Miss Torres, we would like to meet with you to discuss potential opportunities. Would you be available this week?" I scheduled the meeting for Thursday. When I arrived, the conference room was full. The entire board, Mitchell the CFO, Ben, even Tyler, looking younger and more uncomfortable than I'd ever seen anyone. Marcus wasn't there. Jeffrey stood when I entered. "Rebecca, thank you for coming. Please sit." I sat. "We've reviewed the events of the past week," he began, "and the circumstances leading up to them. It's clear we made significant errors in judgment." I didn't say anything. Marcus Chen is no longer with the company. His resignation was accepted this morning. I felt something cold and sharp move through my chest. Not satisfaction. Something more complicated. "We'd like to offer you the position of Chief Operations Officer," Jeffrey continued. "Full restoration of authority, significant salary increase, seat on the executive team." The room was silent. I looked around the table, at the people who had let Marcus dismantle everything I'd built, who had believed his promises of innovation over my warnings based on 2 decades of experience. "No," I said. Jeffrey blinked. "I'm sorry. I appreciate the offer, but no." "Rebecca, I understand you're upset." But I'm not upset, I said. I'm done. You had 20 years to see my value. You chose not to. One disaster doesn't change that. Mitchell leaned forward. What would it take? Name your terms. I thought about that. About what I actually wanted. Not to go back. Not to prove anything anymore. I'll consult, I said. 6 months. I'll stabilize the systems, document everything again, and train whoever you hire to replace me properly. But I'm not coming back as an employee. We need stability, Jeffrey said. We need leadership. Then hire leaders who listen to their experts instead of dismissing them for being over 40. That landed hard. I saw it on their faces. My rate is 3 times what you were paying me, I continued. Take it or leave it, Jeffrey looked at Mitchell. Mitchell nodded slightly. We accept, Jeffrey said. I stood up. I'll send you my contract by tomorrow. And one more thing. Yes. I want a formal letter of apology from the board for allowing my demotion without proper review. I want it on company letterhead, and I want it in my file. Jeffrey hesitated, then nodded. You'll have it. I walked out of that conference room with my head high. Tyler caught up with me at the elevator. Rebecca, I don't. I said, I need to say this. I thought I understood systems architecture. I thought my education made me ready, but I didn't understand what you'd built. I'm sorry. I looked at him, 28 years old, terrified, humbled. Here's what I learned, Tyler, I said. Being smart isn't enough. Being young isn't enough. You need to listen to people who've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Not because they're smarter than you, but because they've already made the mistakes you haven't thought of yet. The elevator opened. I stepped inside. Good luck, I said as the doors closed. The 6-month contract turned into 8 months. I rebuilt the systems. Again. But this time, I documented everything in plain language. I created video tutorials. I held training sessions. I made sure that when I left, the knowledge wouldn't leave with me. Marcus never contacted me. I saw on LinkedIn that he was exploring new opportunities. 8 months later, he still was. Jenny told me later that he'd applied to 3 companies. All of them had called Meridian for references. None of them hired him. That felt like justice. Quiet, imperfect justice. As for me, I finished a contract in October. By then, I had 4 other companies asking me to audit their operational systems. Mid-sized logistics firms, all terrified they'd build something fragile without knowing it. I started my own consulting practice, Torres Systems Consulting. I worked from home, set my own hours, charged what I was actually worth. I turned 46 in November. Had a quiet dinner with Linda and the friends I'd made in those strange months after the demotion. We didn't talk about work. We talked about dating app disasters and bad movies and plans for the holidays. David, the English teacher, was still in my life. Casually, comfortably. Neither of us wanted to rush into anything serious. We were both rebuilding. One evening in December, I got an email from a woman I didn't know. Subject line: Thank you, Miss Torres. I heard about what happened at Meridian through a colleague. I'm 52, recently demoted after 18 years with my company. They told me I wasn't innovative enough. I wanted to give up, but your story gave me permission to fight back. I'm documenting everything now, building my own consulting practice. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I read that email 3 times. Then I started writing a course, Protecting Your Legacy Work, a guide for experienced professionals in tech spaces. It wasn't about revenge. It was about documentation, leverage, and knowing your value when others tried to diminish it. 50 people signed up the first week. Marcus was right about one thing. I never won against him. I won against a system that let him throw me away. And that victory, that one I get to keep. If you're reading this and you're over 40 and someone has told you you're obsolete, let me tell you something. You're not. Your experience isn't a liability. It's leverage. But you have to protect it. Document everything. Know your worth. And when they try to erase you, make sure you've left receipts. I'm Rebecca Torres. I'm 46 years old, and I'm just getting started.
Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, like it, and share it. See you soon.